When the lights went out in a billionaire's mansion, no one expected the electrician who fixed them would end up fixing her life too. But Daniel Hayes wasn't looking for love when he walked through those doors. He was just trying to survive another shift. What happened next would shatter everything he thought he knew about his place in the world. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The rain came down like it had a grudge. Daniel Hayes sat in his truck at the base of Laurel Ridge, windshield wipers losing their battle against the storm, and stared up at the mansion sprawling across the hillside. Half the windows blazed with light. The other half sat dark as a grave. Between the two, somewhere in all that glass and stone and money, something had gone catastrophically wrong. His phone buzzed, third time in 5 minutes. "I'm here," he said, not bothering with hello. "Thank God!" The property manager sounded like he was drowning. "Mr. Hayes, I don't know what happened, but nothing's working right. The security system's screaming, half the house is dark, the other half won't turn off, and Ms. Vaughn has a meeting with Singapore in 40 minutes that absolutely cannot be delayed." Daniel grabbed his tool bag from the passenger seat. "I'll figure it out. The gate code is..." Already got it. He had programmed it in 2 calls ago when they were still pretending this wasn't an emergency. "I'm coming up." The truck groaned as he shifted into gear. It was a 15-year-old Ford that had seen better decades, held together with replacement parts and stubborn refusal to die. Just like Daniel himself some days. He'd bought it used when Emma was born, back when he still thought he and Rachel might make it work. Now Rachel was in Portland with her new husband. Emma was with her grandmother for the weekend, and Daniel was driving up a hill that probably cost more than his entire neighborhood. The gate rolled open before he reached it. Someone was watching. The driveway curved through landscaping that looked deliberately wild but probably cost a fortune to maintain. Motion sensor lights flickered as he passed, on, off, on again, in a rhythm that made no sense. Bad wiring or bad programming? Maybe both. The house loomed larger with every turn, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling glass, the kind of architecture that showed up in magazines with names he couldn't pronounce. He parked between a Tesla and something European he didn't recognize. The front door opened before he got there. A man in his 50s, gray hair immaculate despite the chaos, stood in the doorway like he was guarding a fortress. "Mr. Hayes?" "That's me. Robert Chen, property manager. Thank you for coming so quickly." He stepped aside, already talking fast. "The main issue appears to be in the East Wing, but we're experiencing cascading failures throughout the smart home system. Ms. Vaughn's assistant is attempting to run a video conference from the study, but the power keeps cycling. We've had 3 false alarms from the security system in the last hour. The kitchen staff can't use half their equipment. It's..." An alarm shrieked from somewhere deep in the house. Robert's jaw tightened. It's been like this for 2 hours. Daniel followed him inside. The entry hall was the size of his entire first floor, all white marble, and that particular kind of silence that comes from having too much space. Except right now there was no silence. Voices echoed from different directions. Someone shouting about breakers. Someone else on the phone. A woman's calm voice cutting through the noise like a knife through fog. "I don't care what the system says, Marcus. Override it manually." Daniel turned toward the voice. She stood at the far end of the hall where it opened into what looked like a living room, phone pressed to her ear, staring at a tablet in her other hand. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing black pants and a white shirt that probably cost more than his tool bag. Everything about her read control, the straight spine, the level voice, the way she didn't look up even though she had to know he'd arrived. "Ms. Vaughn," Robert began. She held up one finger. "Wait, Jaim." "No, I understand the protocol," she said into the phone. "What I'm telling you is the protocol isn't working, so we're going to do something else. Yes, I'll hold." She lowered the phone, didn't hit mute. "Is this him?" "Daniel Hayes," Robert confirmed. "He's highly recommended for..." "Can you fix it?" She looked at Daniel for the first time. Gray eyes, direct and tired. Not the exhausted after a long day tired, the kind that had been building for weeks. "Need to see what's wrong first," Daniel said. "East Wing electrical panel." She gestured vaguely to her right. Everything started failing after lightning struck about 3 hours ago. Surge protectors didn't catch it all. The system's trying to compensate and making it worse. Lightning strike. That explained some of it. A different alarm joined the first one, this one from upstairs. Something flickered across her face. Frustration, maybe, or the kind of anger that came from being powerless in a situation where she was used to having all the power. Then it was gone, smoothed over. She lifted the phone back to her ear. "Marcus? I'm still here." Robert led Daniel through the house at a pace that suggested urgency and apology in equal measure. They passed a kitchen where two people in chef's whites were having a tense conversation over a stovetop that wouldn't heat. Climbed a floating staircase made of wood and steel that probably violated every building code Daniel knew. Down a hallway lined with abstract art that meant nothing to him. The electrical panel was behind a door that looked like part of the wall. "I'll be right outside if you need," Robert started. "I'm good." Daniel was already opening his bag. "Kill the main if I shout." Robert hesitated. "Ms. Vaughn needs—" "I know what she needs. Daniel pulled out his voltage tester. "She needs this fixed, so let me fix it." The panel was a disaster. Someone had spec'd it for a house half this size, then added circuits until it looked like a tangled nervous system trying to process too much information at once. Smart home integration spliced in at a dozen points, each one a potential failure waiting to happen. And there, third row down, exactly what he'd expected. A breaker that had tripped but not fully, stuck in that terrible in-between state that made everything downstream go haywire. He killed the power to that circuit. Half the alarm stopped. "Better," he muttered, and kept working. The real problem took 20 minutes to find. A surge suppressor that had died trying to do its job, taking out two circuits and creating feedback that made the smart system think it was under attack. He bypassed it, rerouted power through a secondary line, and made a note that they'd need replacements. Not his job to install them, but someone should know. The house settled around him as he worked. Alarms went quiet, one by one. Lights stopped flickering. Somewhere below someone laughed, relieved, exhausted. Daniel closed the panel, tested the circuits one more time, and let himself take a breath. That was when he heard the footsteps. "Robert said you found it." Elena Vaughn stood in the hallway, no phone this time, just her and that same measured calm. But up close, he could see the cracks in it, tension in her shoulders, a tiredness in her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Tripped breaker and a dead surge suppressor," Daniel said. "You'll need to replace it, and honestly, this whole panel should be upgraded. You're running too much load for what it was designed for." "Can you do that?" "The upgrade." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "Yeah, but not tonight. That's a full day's work, maybe two. Need to pull permits, get the right equipment. I meant, can you personally do it?" She leaned against the door frame. "Robert mentioned you run your own business." "One-man operation," Daniel confirmed. "Hayes Electric. Been doing this 15 years. "And you came out here at 10 o'clock on a Friday night in a storm." He shrugged. "You needed help." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Most contractors I call have a minimum response time of 48 hours. I'm not most contractors." "No." She studied him for a moment, and Daniel had the uncomfortable sense of being assessed in some way he didn't fully understand. "You're not." The hallway felt smaller than it should have, quieter. "I should—" Daniel gestured toward his bag. "Let you get back to your meeting." "It's over." She pushed off from the doorframe. "Singapore rescheduled when the power went out. Probably for the best. I wasn't ready anyway." That surprised him. She didn't seem like someone who was ever not ready. They walked back through the house together. No Robert this time. Just the two of them and the sound of their footsteps on expensive floors. The kitchen staff had left. The lights were all on or all off the way they were supposed to be. Through the windows, the storm had softened to a steady rain. "You live far from here?" Elena asked. 20 minutes, other side of town." "Family?" "Daughter, Emma. She's 8. He didn't mention Rachel or the divorce or any of the rest of it. "Staying with her grandmother this weekend." "So you were home when Robert called?" "Fixing my kitchen sink, actually." Daniel smiled despite himself. "Plumbing's not my specialty, but it's cheaper than calling someone else." "I know that feeling." She said it like she meant it, which made no sense given the house they were standing in. Then, as if she'd heard his thoughts, added, "I grew up in a place where you fixed everything yourself because there was no one else to call." They reached the front door. His truck sat in the rain looking exactly as out of place as Daniel felt. Elena handed him a business card. Not the kind with a company logo. Plain white, just a phone number written in neat handwriting. For the upgrade work, call me directly. I usually send estimates through, I don't want an estimate. She met his eyes, and for a second the tiredness dropped away entirely. I want you to fix it right, whatever it costs. Daniel took the card. The paper felt heavier than it should. Thank you, Elena said quietly, for coming, for fixing it, for... She stopped, reset. You made it feel like a problem that could actually be solved. That doesn't happen often in this house. He wanted to ask what she meant, wanted to know what kind of problems money couldn't fix. But that wasn't his business, and she wasn't his friend, and he was just the electrician who'd shown up when called. Happy to help, he said instead. He drove home through the rain thinking about tired gray eyes, and a voice that stayed calm even when everything around it was falling apart. Thinking about a business card with a phone number and nothing else. Thinking he should forget all of it because people like her didn't exist in the same world as people like him. And Friday night emergency calls didn't mean anything except a good paycheck. His phone buzzed as he pulled into his driveway. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Thank you again. The house is quiet for the first time in hours. I forgot what that felt like. Daniel sat in his truck, engine running, reading those words 3 times. Then he saved the number and went inside. The weekend passed in the usual rhythm. Emma came home Sunday afternoon full of stories about baking cookies with her grandmother and watching movies Daniel had definitely not approved. He made spaghetti for dinner, the one thing he could cook that she'd actually eat, and listened to her explain the plot of some animated film involving talking animals and a quest for a magic crystal. And then the fox realizes the real treasure was friendship, Emma concluded, twirling noodles around her fork. But also there's an actual treasure because otherwise what's the point? Solid logic, Daniel agreed. Grandma said Mom might come visit soon. There it was, the real reason for the elaborate movie summary. Yeah? He kept his voice neutral. That'd be nice. She said Mom's really happy in Portland. Emma wasn't looking at him now. She said Mom's husband has a really good job. Daniel took a breath. Your mom deserves to be happy. Do you think... Emma stopped, started again. Are you happy? The question hit harder than it should have. Was he happy? He had Emma 3 days a week and every other weekend. Had a business that paid the bills most months. Had a house that needed repairs and a truck that needed replacing. And a life that felt most days like he was treading water waiting for things to get better. Or worse. I'm happy when I'm with you, he said, which was true and also not an answer. Emma seemed satisfied with that. She went back to her spaghetti, and Daniel went back to pretending the question hadn't rattled something loose in his chest. Monday morning, he drove her to school and headed to a job across town, rewiring an old office building that should have been condemned. Tuesday was a residential service call, a panel upgrade that took 6 hours and left his back screaming. Wednesday, he spent at his desk doing paperwork and avoiding the stack of bills that had been growing since last month. Thursday afternoon, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hayes Electric. Daniel, it's Elena Vaughn. A pause. From Friday night. Like he could forget. Hey. He pushed away from the desk. Everything still working okay? Perfectly. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Another pause, and he realized she was choosing words carefully. I'd like to schedule that panel upgrade we discussed. Are you available this week? He pulled up his calendar. 2 small jobs Friday, nothing major. I could start Friday afternoon, work through the weekend if that's okay. It's a 2-day job minimum. That's fine, whatever you need. They talked logistics, permits, parts, timing, professional and straightforward. But there was something else underneath it, something he couldn't name. A hesitation in her voice that hadn't been there during the emergency. Daniel? She said, just as he was about to hang up. Yeah. The lights in the east wing have been flickering again, not badly, but... She stopped. Could you come take a look? Before Friday, I mean. I know it's short notice. It was already 4:30. He had Emma tonight and needed to pick her up from school in 20 minutes. I have my daughter this evening, he said, but I could swing by around 6:30 after dinner, just to check it out. That works. Relief in her voice, clear as anything. Thank you. Emma was in a mood when he picked her up. Something about a girl named Jessica and a group project, an unfair distribution of workload. Daniel made sympathetic noises and stopped for ice cream, which improved things marginally. They ate dinner, grilled cheese, Emma's second choice after pizza, and then he explained he had to run to a quick work call. Can I come? She looked up from her homework. I'm bored. It's just checking some wiring, pretty boring. More boring than pre-algebra? Fair point. So 20 minutes later, they were pulling up the now familiar driveway, Emma's face pressed to the window. Whoa, who lives here? A client, Daniel said. Be on your best behavior. I'm always on my best behavior. Right. Robert answered the door this time too, but his expression shifted when he saw Emma. Oh, I didn't realize. Sorry, should have mentioned. Daniel put a hand on Emma's shoulder. This is my daughter. I can reschedule if… No, it's fine. Robert stepped aside. Ms. Vaughn is in the study. I'll let her know you're here. The house looked different in the evening light. Softer somehow, less intimidating. Emma stayed close to Daniel's side, eyes wide, taking in the art and the space and the sheer size of everything. Dad, she whispered, this place is huge. Yeah. Is she a movie star? No, she's a venture capitalist. Elena stood at the top of the stairs, barefoot, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look younger than she had in the suit. More like a person. Less like the calm voice giving orders through chaos. She came down the stairs with a slight smile. Which means I give money to people who have ideas for businesses. Emma considered this. Like Shark Tank? A little like that. Cool. Emma looked at Daniel. You didn't say she was cool. Heat crept up Daniel's neck. I said she was a client. Clients can be cool, Dad. Elena laughed. A real laugh. Surprised and genuine. I like her. What's your name? Emma Hayes. She stuck out her hand with the formal politeness of a kid who'd been taught proper manners. I'm 8. Well, almost 9. My birthday's in 6 weeks. They shook hands like business associates. I'm sorry to interrupt your evening, Elena said, still looking at Emma. I know you probably had better things to do than come look at flickering lights. It's okay. Pre-algebra is terrible anyway. The worst, Elena agreed solemnly. They moved through the house together, Daniel trying to maintain some sense of professional distance, while his daughter peppered Elena with questions about the art on the walls, the weird chair in the corner, whether she had a pool. Elena answered each one with patience that surprised him. The East Wing lights flickered on cue. See? Elena gestured up. It's been doing that since yesterday. Daniel set down his bag, pulled out his tester. Emma, stay here. Can I explore? No. Please? He looked at Elena, who shrugged. There's a library 2 doors down. Lots of books. Emma's eyes lit up. She was gone before Daniel could object. She's great, Elena said as Daniel checked the junction box. She's a handful. The best ones are. He found the problem in 5 minutes. Loose connection, simple fix. But as he tightened the wire nuts, he was aware of Elena watching him work. Not hovering, just present, quiet. How old were you when you started doing this? She asked. 17, apprenticed with a guy who worked on commercial buildings. Daniel tested the connection. Spent 5 years learning before I went out on my own. You like it? It makes sense. He closed the junction box. Electricity follows rules. You learn the rules, you can fix almost anything, not like people. No. Something sad in her voice. Not like people. The light stopped flickering. They found Emma in the library, curled up in a chair with a book that looked older than she was. Can I finish this chapter? That book's probably worth more than my truck, Daniel said. It's fine. Elena sat in the chair across from Emma. What are you reading? Something about a girl in a garden. Emma showed her the cover. The pictures are really pretty. They sat there for 10 minutes, Elena and Emma discussing the book while Daniel packed up his tools. It felt strange and normal at the same time. His daughter and this billionaire talking about illustrated classics like they were old friends, like the gulf between their worlds didn't exist. When they finally headed for the door, Elena walked them out. What do I owe you? She asked. Nothing. It was just a loose wire. Daniel, seriously, 5-minute fix. She looked like she wanted to argue, then changed her mind. Thank you for coming, for bringing Emma, for... She stopped, smiled. Just thank you. Emma tugged on Daniel's sleeve. Dad, I'm hungry. You ate an hour ago. I'm still growing. Elena laughed. There's leftover lasagna in the kitchen. The staff made enough to feed 20 people. We couldn't, Daniel started. Well, please, I'm never going to eat it all. So somehow they ended up in Elena's massive kitchen, Emma perched on a bar stool telling stories about school, while Elena heated up lasagna that probably came from some private chef. Daniel watched them together and felt something shift in his chest. Something that felt dangerous and inevitable at the same time. They ate at the kitchen island, the three of them, the huge house quiet around them. Emma dominated the conversation with the easy confidence of a kid who didn't know she was supposed to be intimidated. Elena asked questions and listened to the answers like they mattered. And Daniel sat there thinking this was the strangest Thursday night he'd had in years. When Emma started yawning, he knew it was time to go. Thank you for dinner, Emma said, her manners kicking in again, and for letting me read your book. Come back any time, Elena said. I mean that. At the door, Emma ran ahead to the truck, leaving Daniel and Elena alone for a moment. She's wonderful, Elena said quietly. She is. You're doing a good job. The compliment hit unexpectedly hard. Trying. That's all anyone can do. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking as tired as she had that first night. I'll see you Friday? For the upgrade? I'll be here. He was halfway to the truck when she called his name. Daniel? He turned. She stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm light of the house, and for a moment she looked like she wanted to say something important. Then the moment passed. Drive safe, she said instead. Always do. Emma fell asleep on the drive home, her head against the window. Daniel carried her inside, got her into bed without fully waking her. Then he sat in his own kitchen, in the house that always felt too quiet, and thought about a woman who gave away expensive lasagna and talked to his daughter like she mattered. His phone buzzed. Thank you for bringing her. The house felt less empty tonight. Daniel stared at those words for a long time. Then he typed back, She had a great time. See you Friday. He almost added something else, almost asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, if the house was really as empty as she'd made it sound. But he didn't, because he was the electrician and she was the client, and there was a line between those two things that he needed to remember existed. Even if, increasingly, he wasn't sure where that line was anymore. Friday came with the kind of clarity that follows rain, everything sharp-edged and bright. Daniel loaded his truck before dawn, wire, breakers, conduit, all the parts he'd need for a proper panel upgrade. The permit sat in his glove box, approved faster than he'd expected. Maybe that's what happened when you worked for people who knew how to make things move. Emma had asked about Elena twice during breakfast. Is she nice? She'd wanted to know. Like, actually nice or grown-up fake nice? Actually nice, Daniel had said, and meant it. Are you going to be her friend? The question had stopped him mid-pour of coffee. She's a client, Em. You can be friends with clients. It's complicated. Emma had rolled her eyes with the exasperation of someone who didn't yet understand that complications were what made adult life adult. Everything's complicated with you. Now, pulling up to the mansion in full daylight, Daniel wondered if his daughter had a point. Robert met him at his door again, but this time with less urgency and more what looked like resigned acceptance. Ms. Vaughn is on a call, but she said to get you started. I'll show you to the panel. I remember where it is. Of course, Robert hesitated. She also mentioned you might need access to the attic and basement. I've left both unlocked. The work took over after that, the way it always did. Daniel killed the main power, ignoring the immediate protests from somewhere in the house about lost internet connections. He pulled the old panel piece by piece, cataloging each circuit, mapping what went where. Someone had done the original installation drunk or in a hurry, maybe both. Wires crossed that shouldn't cross, loads balanced like a drunk on a tightrope. He was 3 hours in, sweat soaking through his shirt despite the cool air, when he heard footsteps. How bad is it? Elena stood in the doorway wearing running clothes, hair pulled back, a water bottle in one hand. She looked different like this, younger, less armored. Bad enough. Daniel gestured to the mess of wires on the floor. Whoever did your original electrical should have their license revoked. This is barely code compliant. Is that electrician speak for dangerous? It's electrician speak for I'm surprised the house didn't burn down. She came closer, studying the exposed panel like it might tell her secrets. How long have you been here? Since 7. Have you eaten? He hadn't. I'm fine. Daniel. She said his name like a teacher correcting a student. The kitchen's full of food. Help yourself. I need to take a break. The panel will still be broken in 20 minutes. She was right, and his back was killing him anyway. He followed her down to the kitchen, trying not to notice the way her running shorts fit or the line of her shoulders or any of the other things he had no business noticing. The kitchen was empty, but the refrigerator looked like it belonged to a restaurant. Elena pulled out containers while Daniel washed the grime off his hands. Turkey sandwich okay? She asked. You don't have to. I know. She was already building it. But you came here at 7 in the morning on a Friday to fix my electrical system so I can make you a sandwich. They ate at the island, the same spot where he and Emma had shared lasagna. Sunlight poured through the windows, making everything look softer than it had at night. Emma still talking about the library? Elena asked. She asked if she could come back and finish the book. She should. Elena took a drink of water. I never know what to do with all those books. My mother collected them. The past tense hung in the air. She passed? Daniel asked carefully. 6 years ago. Elena traced the edge of her plate. Cancer. She fought it for 3 years before... She stopped, reset. Anyway, the books were hers. I kept them because getting rid of them felt like getting rid of her. I get that. He thought about the box of Rachel's things still in his attic, stuff from when they'd been happy. My ex-wife, she left some photo albums when she moved out. I should probably send them to her, but you can't quite do it. Yeah. They sat with that understanding for a moment. Two people who'd both learned that letting go was harder than holding on. Can I ask you something? Elena said. And you can tell me it's none of my business. Okay. Do you like this? The electrical work, the long hours, She gestured vaguely. All of it. Daniel considered the question. It's what I'm good at. That's not what I asked. No. He met her eyes, but it's the answer people can live with. Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe. I know that answer. Yeah? He took a chance. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I have no idea. I've been doing this so long I forgot there were other options. She stood, collecting their plates. I should let you get back to work. But she didn't leave. Just stood there by the sink, looking out the window at the grounds that probably cost more to maintain than Daniel made in a year. There's a studio, she said quietly. In the West Wing. I don't really show it to people. It wasn't a question, but it felt like one. I'd like to see it, Daniel said. They walked through hallways he hadn't seen before, past rooms that seemed to exist just to exist. The studio was behind a door that looked like all the others, but when Elena opened it, Daniel understood why she didn't show people. The room was chaos. Canvases everywhere, some finished, most not. Paint splattered on a drop cloth that covered most of the floor. The smell of turpentine and oil paint and something else, something that spoke of hours spent alone. One wall was all windows, looking out over the hills. An easel stood in the center, a half-finished painting of a coastline that looked more felt than seen. I'm not very good, Elena said, defensive. Sometimes I need to do something with my hands that isn't typing or signing things or making decisions. Daniel moved closer to the painting. The coastline had a loneliness to it, all gray water and dark rocks. Where is this? Northern California. A place my mother used to take me when I was young. She stood beside him, before everything got complicated. It's good. You don't have to... I mean it. He looked at her. It feels real, like you've been there recently. I haven't been back in years. She wrapped her arms around herself. I keep meaning to go, but there's always something else. Always another meeting, another crisis, another reason to stay here and manage things that don't actually need managing. So go. It's not that simple. Why not? She didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe she had too many answers and couldn't pick one. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Can we get pizza tonight? I should get back to work, he said. Panel's not going to install itself. Elena walked him to the door of the studio, then stopped. Thank you. For listening. For not... She searched for words. For not treating me like I'm supposed to have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. Tell that to the 40 people who work for me. He left her there, surrounded by her unfinished paintings, and went back to the work that made sense. The panel took the rest of the afternoon. He ran new circuits, balanced the loads properly, installed surge protectors that might actually protect something. By 6 o'clock, he was finishing up, testing each breaker, making sure everything held. Elena appeared as he was packing his tools. All set? She asked. For today. Need to come back tomorrow to finish the final connections and get it inspected. What time? 10, if that works. It works. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him. Can I ask you something else? Sure. Do you ever... She stopped, started over. Do you ever feel like you're going through the motions? Like you're doing everything right, but none of it means anything? The question landed hard. Daniel zipped his tool bag slowly, buying time. Sometimes? What do you do about it? I don't know yet. He looked at her, still figuring that part out. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Me too. He drove home thinking about unfinished paintings and questions that didn't have easy answers. Emma wanted pizza, so they got pizza. She told him about her day, something involving a science project and a disagreement with Jessica that had apparently been resolved. He listened and made the right noises and tried not to think about gray eyes and a studio full of lonely coastlines. That night, after Emma was asleep, his phone buzzed. Do you like Thai food? He stared at the message for a solid minute before typing back. Yeah, why? There's a place I've been wanting to try. Tomorrow. After you finish? My treat. This was a bad idea. He knew it was a bad idea. There was a line, and this was stepping over it. Okay, he sent back anyway. Saturday morning came too fast. Daniel dropped Emma at Rachel's mother's house. His ex had decided to visit after all, flying in from Portland for the weekend. Emma had been excited about it all week. Daniel had been trying not to feel replaced. Be good, he told Emma as she climbed out of the truck. Always am. She paused. Are you seeing Elena today? I'm finishing her electrical work. And? And nothing. Emma gave him a look that said she didn't believe him for a second, then ran inside. The panel upgrade took 3 hours. Daniel worked carefully, double-checking every connection, testing every circuit. This was the kind of work that would last years if done right, and he wasn't about to cut corners just because his mind kept wandering to Elena's text from last night. She appeared around noon, dressed casually in jeans and a gray sweater, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, she said, handing him one. Thanks. He took a sip. Perfect. Cream? No sugar? He'd never told her how he took his coffee. How'd you know? You had it that way the other night. I pay attention. That simple statement shouldn't have made his chest tight, but it did. They stood there in the hallway drinking coffee, while Daniel's mind raced through all the reasons this was getting complicated. She was a client. She was a billionaire. She lived in a different universe. They had nothing in common except coincidence and electrical problems. I can't stop thinking about what you said yesterday, Elena said suddenly, about still figuring it out. Yeah? It made me feel less alone. She looked at him over the rim of her cup. Is that strange? No. I spend so much time around people who have everything figured out, or pretend they do. It's exhausting. Most people are pretending, Daniel said. They're just better at hiding it. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more... She waved her hand vaguely. Impressed? Intimidated? Most people get weird when they see this place. It's just a house. It's really not. Okay, he conceded. It's a really big house with really expensive art and really complicated electrical systems. But it's still just a place where someone lives. Exists, she corrected quietly. I exist here. I'm not sure I live here. The distinction felt important. Daniel finished his coffee and got back to work. Elena disappeared for a while, then came back with lunch. Sandwiches from somewhere that definitely wasn't a chain restaurant. They ate sitting on the floor of the hallway because all the nearby rooms were too formal and the kitchen felt too far away. "Tell me about Emma," Elena said. "Does she live with you full time?" 3 days a week, every other weekend. Her mom moved to Portland 2 years ago. He didn't mention how that had felt like failure. "We make it work." "That must be hard." "What must be hard?" "Only getting her part-time, sharing her." No one had put it that way before. Most people said he was lucky to have any custody at all, like he should be grateful for the scraps. "Yeah," he admitted, "it's hard. You're a good father. You barely know me." "I know enough." She picked at her sandwich. "I know you brought her here instead of leaving her home alone. I know she's confident and funny and knows she's loved. That doesn't happen by accident." The compliment sat heavy in his chest. "Thanks." They finished lunch and Daniel installed the last connections. By 3 o'clock, the panel was done. Clean, proper, built to handle whatever the house threw at it. He called for the inspection, knowing the guy who'd come Monday morning. Everything was in order. "All set," he told Elena. "You're good to go." "Thank you." She walked him to the door, then stopped. "About tonight, we don't have to if you'd rather not. I know it's probably weird." It was definitely weird. "What time?" Daniel asked. 7? "I'll text you the address." He went home and stood in his shower for 20 minutes, trying to talk himself out of this. It was just dinner, just a thank you from a client. It didn't mean anything, except he changed his shirt 3 times and actually bothered to shave, which meant it did mean something, even if he wasn't ready to name what. The restaurant was in a neighborhood he'd driven through but never stopped in, the kind of place with valet parking and a wait list. Elena was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table, studying a menu like it might hold answers to questions she hadn't asked yet. "Hey," he said, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt in his cleanest jeans and a button-down that had seen better years. "Hey." She looked up, and something eased in her expression. "I was worried you'd change your mind." "Almost did," he admitted, sitting down. "What stopped you?" "Curiosity." "About Thai food?" "About you." The honesty landed between them, and for a second neither of them seemed to know what to do with it. Then Elena smiled, slow and real. "Well," she said, "that's fair." They ordered too much food, pad thai and green curry and spring rolls, and something the waiter recommended that arrived looking beautiful and tasting better. Elena asked about his work, about how he'd ended up doing electrical, about what he wanted for Emma. Daniel found himself talking more than he usually did, the words coming easier than they should have. "What about you?" he asked eventually. "How does someone end up—" He gestured vaguely, meaning the wealth, the mansion, all of it. "Venture capital?" Elena set down her chopsticks. "My father was an engineer, made a small fortune when the company he worked for went public. He invested it carefully, taught me to do the same. When he died, I took what he'd built and made it bigger." She said it matter-of-factly, like she was describing someone else's life. "Turns out I'm good at seeing which ideas will work before other people do." "You don't sound happy about it." "I'm grateful for it," she corrected. "There's a difference." "What would make you happy?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "I don't know. I used to think it was success. Then I thought it was security. Now—" She trailed off. "Now I think maybe it's something simpler." "Like?" "Like dinner with someone who doesn't want anything from me except conversation." Daniel felt something shift in his chest. "Is that what this is?" "I hope so." She met his eyes. "Is it?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "It is." They stayed until the restaurant started emptying out, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about the paintings she'd never finish, the places she'd never visit, the version of herself she'd imagined becoming before life got in the way. He told her about the house he'd wanted to buy before the divorce, the workshop he'd dreamed of building, the future that had dissolved like sugar in rain. When they finally left, Elena walked him to his truck. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight, for not making it weird." "It was a little weird," Daniel said. "Yeah," she smiled. "But good weird." He was about to say goodbye when she spoke again. "There's a place I go sometimes, when I need to clear my head. It's about an hour from here, Just a spot by the water. Nothing special. Would you want to see it? It was past 11. He should go home. Should maintain whatever distance still existed between them. Now? He asked. Why not? So they took her car. Something sleek and expensive that handled the winding coastal roads like it was built for them. Elena drove fast but not reckless, her hands steady on the wheel. They didn't talk much, just listened to music Daniel didn't recognize, and watched the city lights give way to darkness, and then to the faint shimmer of water under moonlight. The spot she brought him to was a pullout overlooking the ocean, waves crashing against rocks below. No one else around. Just them and the sound of water and the vast dark sky overhead. I used to come here with my mother, Elena said, standing at the edge of the guardrail. Before she got sick. We'd drive up, sit in the car, and just watch the water. She said it helped her remember the world was bigger than whatever she was worried about. Daniel stood beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of her against the cool night air. Do you think about her a lot? Every day. Elena's voice was quiet. She'd hate what I've become. She wanted me to be happy, not successful. I got them backwards. It's not too late to fix that, isn't it? She turned to look at him, and in the moonlight, her face was open in a way it hadn't been before. Vulnerable. I'm 30 years old, Daniel. I have a company, employees, responsibilities. I can't just walk away and paint coastlines. Why not? Because that's not how the world works. Says who? She didn't have an answer for that. They stood there at the silence, the ocean relentless below, and Daniel felt the space between them shrinking. Felt the careful distance he'd been maintaining start to collapse under the weight of something neither of them had named yet. I should take you back, Elena said finally, but she didn't move. Yeah. Neither of them moved. Then Elena's hand found his, her fingers cold and tentative, and Daniel's entire world narrowed to that point of contact. They stood like that for a long moment, not looking at each other, not saying anything, just existing in a space where the rules they'd been following didn't seem to apply anymore. This is a bad idea, Elena whispered. Probably. I'm not good at this. Relationships, letting people in. Me neither. She turned to face him fully, and Daniel saw everything he'd been trying not to see. The loneliness, the hope, the fear that this was just another thing that would fall apart. I don't want to mess this up, she said. Then we won't. It was a promise he had no business making, but he made it anyway. And when she kissed him, soft and hesitant and real, he kissed her back like it was the only thing that made sense in a world that had stopped making sense a long time ago. They drove back in silence that felt different than before, heavier, fuller. When she pulled up to his truck, still parked at the restaurant, Elena put the car in park but didn't unlock the doors. I want to see you again, she said. Not as a client, as I know. Is that okay? Daniel thought about all the reasons it wasn't okay. The gap between their worlds, the complications. Emma. His carefully managed life that was about to get a lot less managed. Yeah, he said, it's okay. She kissed him again before he got out, and this time there was nothing hesitant about it. He drove home with his hand still shaking, with his mind racing through everything that had just changed. The house was dark and empty. Emma still at her grandmother's, the silence complete. He sat in his truck in the driveway and tried to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed. I can't stop smiling. Is that normal? E? Daniel laughed despite himself, despite everything. I think so. When can I see you again? Tomorrow? Too long. I have Emma tomorrow. A pause. Then, bring her. We can go somewhere. Just the three of us. That should have scared him. Should have been too much too fast. But instead it felt right, in a way nothing had felt right in years. Okay, he sent back. Where? Surprise. Pick you up at noon. He went inside and lay in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep was impossible. His phone buzzed again around 2 a.m. Are you awake? Yeah, good. I was worried I was the only one. They texted until dawn, about nothing important and everything that mattered. And when Daniel finally fell asleep as the sun was rising, he dreamed of coastlines and unfinished paintings, and a future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned but felt, somehow, exactly right. Emma was skeptical when Daniel told her about the plans. She wants to hang out with us? She looked up from her cereal, spoon halfway to her mouth. Like, On purpose? Yeah, on purpose. Where are we going? She said it's a surprise. Emma considered this, her 8-year-old brain working through the implications. Is she your girlfriend? The question hit Daniel square in the chest. It's complicated. You always say that. Emma went back to her cereal. I think she likes you, and you definitely like her. I saw how you looked at her. How did I look at her? Like she was important. Emma said it simply, like it was obvious. You don't look at people like that very much. Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. Wear something comfortable. We might be outside. Elena arrived at noon in a different car, an SUV instead of the sleek sedan from last night. She wore jeans and a blue sweater, her hair loose, sunglasses pushed up on her head. When Emma opened the door, Elena smiled. Ready for an adventure? Emma looked at Daniel, then back at Elena. What kind of adventure? The kind with animals. That sealed it. Emma was out the door before Daniel could grab his jacket. They drove north, Elena at the wheel, Emma firing questions from the back seat. Where were they going? What kind of animals? Could they touch them? Would there be horses? Elena answered each one patiently, and Daniel watched the easy way they talked to each other, the comfortable rhythm they'd found. The sanctuary was an hour outside the city, tucked into rolling hills that looked nothing like the coastal mansion or Daniel's neighborhood. Elena pulled up to a wooden gate with a hand-painted sign that read, Second Chances Wildlife Rescue. A friend of mine runs this place, Elena explained as they got out. She takes in animals that can't be released back into the wild. Thought Emma might like it. Emma was already running toward the entrance. The friend turned out to be a woman in her 40s named Maria, all practical clothes and warm smile. She greeted Elena with a hug that spoke of real friendship, not the polite distance Daniel had seen from Robert and the house staff. This must be Emma, Maria said, shaking Emma's hand seriously. And Daniel. Thanks for letting us crash your Sunday, Daniel said. Are you kidding? Elena never brings anyone here. You must be special. Elena's cheeks colored slightly. Can we see the new fox? They spent 2 hours walking through the sanctuary. Maria showed them rehabilitating owls, a 3-legged coyote, raccoons that had been orphaned. Emma asked 100 questions, careful and gentle, when Maria let her help feed the animals. Daniel hung back, watching Elena crouch down next to his daughter to examine a turtle's shell, their heads bent together in concentration. She's different with you. Daniel turned. Maria stood beside him, arms crossed, a knowing look on her face. Different how? Lighter. Less like she's holding up the world. Maria glanced at Elena. I've known her 10 years. Never seen her bring a man here. Definitely never seen her bring a man and his kid. We're just... Daniel stopped. What were they? It's new. New is good. Maria's expression turned serious. But be careful with her. Elena doesn't let people in easily. When she does, it means something. Daniel thought about coastlines and unfinished paintings and text messages at 2 a.m. I know. When they finally left, Emma fell asleep in the back seat within minutes, worn out from the excitement. Elena drove slower on the way back, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console close enough to Daniel's that their fingers almost touched. Thank you for today, Daniel said quietly. She loved it. So did I. Elena glanced in the rearview mirror at Emma's sleeping form. She's easy to love. The words hung there, and Daniel wondered if she was talking about just Emma. They stopped for an early dinner at a small place Elena knew, the kind with checkered tablecloths and a menu that hadn't changed in 20 years. Emma woke up hungry and demolished a plate of spaghetti while telling Elena everything she'd learned about owl pellets and coyote behavior. Did you know they can eat almost anything? Emma said around a mouthful of pasta. Maria said they're super adaptable. Like you, Elena said, and Emma beamed. Walking back to the car, Emma ran ahead to look at something in a shop window. Elena caught Daniel's hand, laced her fingers through his. Is this okay? She asked. In front of her? Daniel looked at his daughter, then at Elena. Yeah, it's okay. That night, after he'd dropped Elena off with a kiss that lasted longer than it should have in his driveway, after he'd gotten Emma ready for bed, his daughter appeared in his doorway. Dad? Yeah? I like her. Emma twisted the hem of her pajama shirt. Is that okay? Daniel sat up. Come here. Emma climbed onto the bed, curling into his side the way she used to when she was smaller. Mom's never coming back, is she? Not to live here. The question hurt more than it should have. No, Em, she's not. That's okay. Emma's voice was small. I mean, it's sad, but it's okay. She's happy there. She is. Are you happy? Daniel thought about the question, really thought about it. A month ago, he would have said he was fine, that happiness wasn't the point, that he was doing what needed to be done. I'm getting there, he said now. I think I'm getting there. Emma nodded against his shoulder. Elena makes you smile different, like it's real. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always notice. She fell asleep there, and Daniel let her stay, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how fast everything was changing. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Elena. Thank you for today, for letting me into your world. Daniel. Thank you for the sanctuary. Emma hasn't stopped talking about it. Elena. Good. I want her to like me. Daniel. She does. She told me. A longer pause this time. Then, I'm falling for you, both of you. Is that crazy? Daniel stared at the message, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. It was crazy. It was too fast. It was every bad decision he'd promised himself he wouldn't make again. Daniel, no, it's not crazy. Elena, I want to see you tomorrow, just us. Daniel, I have work until 6. Elena, come to the house after, please. He shouldn't. He had paperwork to finish, bills to pay, a life to maintain. But he sent back, okay. The next day dragged. Daniel worked a residential job that should have taken 3 hours and took 5 because the homeowner kept changing their mind about outlet placement. By the time he finished, he was tired and irritable and covered in drywall dust. He almost texted Elena to cancel, but he didn't. The mansion looked different in the evening light, softer somehow. Robert wasn't at the door this time. Elena answered it herself, barefoot, wearing paint-stained jeans and an old t-shirt. You're painting, Daniel said. Trying to. She stepped aside to let him in. Not successfully, but trying. The studio was a mess, a good mess, the kind that came from actual work instead of careful arrangement. 3 canvases in progress, paint everywhere, music playing from a small speaker. Elena had paint in her hair. You have blue... Daniel gestured to his own head. Oh. She tried to wipe it out, just made it worse. Great, very professional. I like it. She stopped trying to fix her hair and just looked at him. I'm glad you came. Me too. They stood there for a moment, the space between them charged with everything they hadn't said yet. Then Elena crossed to him, cupped his face in her paint-stained hands, and kissed him like she'd been waiting all day to do it. It was different from the kiss by the ocean, more urgent, more certain. Daniel's hands found her waist, pulled her closer, and she made a small sound against his mouth that went straight through him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena rested her forehead against his. I've been thinking about doing that since yesterday, she admitted. Just yesterday? Okay, since Thursday. Maybe since you fixed my lights the first time. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. This is moving fast. Yeah. Does that scare you? Terrifies me, Daniel said honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. She smiled and it transformed her whole face. Come on, I want to show you something. She led him to the canvas she'd been working on, the coastline from before, but different now. More complete. Less lonely. I went back, Elena said, to the place with my mother, after I dropped you off yesterday. I just drove up there and sat for an hour, and then I came home and painted this. She gestured to the canvas. It's not finished, but it's closer. It's beautiful. It's honest. She wiped her hands on her jeans. That's better than beautiful. They spent the next hour in the studio, Elena painting while Daniel sat on the floor and watched. She worked with a focus that reminded him of how he felt when he was deep into a complex electrical problem, the rest of the world falling away, leaving just the work and the satisfaction of doing it right. Can I ask you something? Elena said, not looking up from her canvas. Sure. What happened with your ex? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but we got married too young, Daniel said. 22, both of us barely adults. Had Emma 2 years later and I thought that would fix things. It didn't. Rachel wanted things I couldn't give her. Stability, security, a bigger life. I wanted... He stopped, trying to find the right words. I wanted us to be enough for each other, but we weren't. That must have hurt. It did. Still does sometimes, if I'm honest. He watched her add a stroke of gray to the water. I spent 2 years blaming myself, thinking if I'd just worked harder, made more money, been different somehow, she would have stayed. But that's not how it works. No. Daniel leaned back against the wall. Sometimes people just want different things. That doesn't make anyone wrong. Elena set down her brush and came to sit beside him, their shoulders touching. I was engaged once, 5 years ago. That surprised him. What happened? He wanted a wife who would host dinner parties and look good at fundraisers. I wanted... She laughed, but there was pain in it. I didn't know what I wanted. Just knew it wasn't that. So I called it off 3 months before the wedding. My father had just died, and everyone said I was making a mistake because of grief. Maybe they were right. Or maybe you knew yourself better than they did. She turned to look at him. I think you might be the first person who's ever said that. They sat like that for a while, the studio quiet except for the music still playing softly. Then Elena's phone rang. She glanced at it, sighed. I have to take this. Work thing. I should probably go anyway. Early job tomorrow. But neither of them moved. Daniel? Elena's voice was quiet. I know this is complicated. I know there are 100 reasons this might not work. But I want to try. So do I. She kissed him again, soft and sweet, then answered the phone with a completely different voice. Professional, detached. Daniel let himself out, walking through the quiet house to his truck. He was halfway home when his phone rang. Unknown number, but he answered anyway. Mr. Hayes. A woman's voice, hesitant. This is Jennifer Martinez. I got your number from the Johnsons. You did some work for them last month? Yeah, I remember. I'm opening an art gallery downtown. The space needs completely new electrical. It's an old building. Nothing's up to code. The Johnsons said you were the person to call. Daniel pulled into a gas station parking lot, grabbed a pen. When do you need it done? As soon as possible. We're opening in 6 weeks. They talked details, timeline, budget. It was a big job, the kind that could keep him busy for a month, the kind that paid well enough to actually matter. He should have been excited about it, but all he could think about was how it would eat into his time with Emma, and now time with Elena. Can I get back to you tomorrow? Daniel asked. I need to check my schedule. Of course. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Thank it. He sat in the parking lot after hanging up, staring at nothing. This was the kind of opportunity he'd been waiting for. Real work, good money, a chance to build something. But taking it meant sacrificing the small spaces of peace he'd carved out. Meant less time for everything that wasn't work. His phone buzzed. Elena. Already miss you. Daniel smiled despite the weight settling in his chest. Same. When can I see you again? Wednesday? I have Emma Tuesday. Too long. Come by tomorrow after work. Even just for an hour. He should say no. Should maintain some distance, some control over how fast this was moving. But he typed, okay. The next day was brutal. The residential job turned into a nightmare of old wiring and hidden problems. By the time Daniel finished, it was after 7 and he was running on coffee and stubbornness. He almost texted Elena to cancel, but he drove to the mansion anyway, showing up sweaty and exhausted and in no state to see anyone. Elena took one look at him and pulled him inside. You look terrible. Thanks. I mean, you look exhausted. When's the last time you ate? Lunch? Maybe? Daniel couldn't remember. She led him to the kitchen, sat him down, and made him a sandwich while he protested weakly that he could do it himself. But it felt good to be taken care of, to let someone else make decisions for a few minutes. Big job? Elena asked, setting the plate in front of him. Daniel told her about the gallery, the timeline, the decision he had to make. You should take it, Elena said immediately. It's a lot of time. It's a good opportunity. Yeah, but... He stopped, not sure how to say what he was thinking. It means less time for other things. Elena reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. We'll figure it out. Take the job, Daniel. Don't give up good work because of me. It's not just you, it's Emma too. and she'd want you to take it. You know she would. Elena squeezed his hand. Besides, I'm not going anywhere. We have time. They didn't, though. Not really. Daniel could feel it already, the pull of work, the never-ending cycle of jobs and bills and obligations, the way relationships got swallowed by everyday life if you weren't careful. But he called Jennifer Martinez the next morning and took the job. The weeks that followed were a blur. Daniel worked the gallery job during the day, smaller jobs in the evening. Saw Emma when he could, though it was less than he wanted. And Elena, they found time in the cracks. An hour here, a late dinner there, texts at midnight when neither of them could sleep. It wasn't enough, but it was something. One Friday night, 3 weeks into the gallery job, Elena showed up at the worksite. Daniel was on a ladder, running conduit, when he heard footsteps behind him. You know, most people call first, he said without turning around. Most people aren't bringing dinner to electricians who forget to eat. He climbed down to find Elena holding takeout bags and wearing a smile that made his chest tight. You didn't have to do that. I know, I wanted to. She set the bags on a sawhorse. Besides, I missed you. It's been 4 days. It had been. Daniel had been counting too. They ate sitting on the floor of the half-finished gallery, surrounded by tools and wire and the smell of sawdust. Elena told him about a deal that had fallen through, about a painting she'd finished, about Emma's latest text asking when they could go back to the animal sanctuary. She texted you? Daniel asked. Is that okay? She asked for my number last week, said she wanted to send me pictures of a science project. It should have felt like too much, like things were moving into territory he wasn't ready for. But instead, it felt right. It's okay, Daniel said. Elena moved closer, rested her head on his shoulder. I like your life. The messy parts, the complicated parts. All of it. Even the part where I'm covered in drywall dust and smell like a hardware store? Especially that part. Daniel kissed her there in the half-finished gallery that smelled like possibility and fresh starts. And for a moment, everything else fell away. The gallery job finished on schedule. Daniel spent the last day doing final inspections, checking every connection, making sure everything was perfect. Jennifer was thrilled, already talking about other properties she was acquiring, other work she'd need done. You have my number, Daniel said, packing up his tools for the last time. That night, Elena insisted on celebrating, not at some fancy restaurant, at her house, with Emma invited too. They ordered pizza and ate in the kitchen while Emma told them about school and her ongoing feud with Jessica over the science project. She said my part wasn't good enough, Emma complained, but hers was just pictures from the internet. Did you tell the teacher? Elena asked. Yeah, but she said we had to work it out ourselves, which is just grown-up code for I don't want to deal with it. Daniel tried not to laugh. It's true. Emma looked at Elena for backup. Right? Sometimes, Elena admitted. But sometimes they're trying to teach you to solve your own problems. That's what Dad says. Emma sighed dramatically. You guys are ganging up on me. After dinner, Emma got absorbed in a book from Elena's library while Daniel helped clean up. Elena washed, he dried, the domestic simplicity of it somehow more intimate than anything else they'd done. I have something to ask you, Elena said, not looking at him. Okay. There's a gallery opening next week. Art, not electrical work. It's a big deal. A lot of people from my world will be there. She set down the dish she was washing. I want you to come with me. Daniel's stomach dropped. Elena, I know. She turned to face him. I know it's not your thing. I know you'll hate it, but I want you there. She stopped, started over. I'm tired of keeping you separate from the rest of my life. I want people to know you exist. As what? The electrician you're seeing? As the man She caught herself. As someone who matters to me. Daniel thought about the mansion, the money, the world she moved through that he couldn't begin to understand. Thought about showing up to some gallery opening in his best clothes and still looking like exactly what he was. I don't fit in that world, he said quietly. I don't care. The people there will. Then they can leave. Elena's voice was firm. Daniel, I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to stand next to me for a few hours while people look at art and drink expensive wine. That's all. It wasn't all, though. They both knew it. What do I wear? He asked and watched relief flood her face. Whatever you want. You could show up in your work clothes and I wouldn't care. Your friends would. They're not all my friends. The opening was the following Thursday. Daniel dropped Emma at Rachel's mother's house and drove home to change. He'd bought a new shirt. Nothing fancy, just something that didn't have paint stains or worn cuffs. Stood in front of his bathroom mirror trying to make his hair cooperate. His phone rang. Rachel. Hey, he answered. Hey, Emma said you have a date tonight? Something like that. The woman from the big house? Rachel's voice was careful. Emma talks about her a lot. Yeah. A pause. Is it serious? Daniel thought about midnight texts and unfinished paintings, and the way Elena looked at him like he was someone worth knowing. Getting there. Good. Rachel sounded like she meant it. You deserve that. Thanks. Daniel? She hesitated. I'm sorry. For how things ended. For making you feel like you weren't enough. You were. I needed different things. I know, he said, and meant it. We both did what we had to do. After they hung up, he stared at himself in the mirror one more time. Same Daniel. Same worn hands and tired eyes, and life held together with determination and duct tape. But maybe, for the first time in years, moving towards something instead of just away from failure. Elena picked him up at 7 in the sleek sedan, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than his truck. She looked beautiful and untouchable, and nothing like the woman who showed up at construction sites with takeout. You look nice, she said when he got in. You look, he gestured helplessly. Like you. She smiled. Is that good? Yeah, it's good. The gallery was in the arts district, all glass and steel and people who looked like they'd stepped out of magazines. Daniel felt every eye on them as they walked in, Elena's hand in his. Could practically hear the questions, the judgment. A woman in her 50s approached, air-kissing Elena's cheeks. Darling, you made it, and you brought… Daniel Hayes, Elena said smoothly. Daniel, this is Patricia Emerson. She sits on the board of the museum. Nice to meet you, Daniel said, shaking her hand. Patricia's smile was polite but assessing. Hayes, are you in tech? Electrical, Daniel said. I wire buildings. The pause was barely perceptible, but he felt it anyway. How interesting. She moved on quickly, and Daniel felt Elena's hand tighten on his. Ignore her, Elena murmured. I'm fine. But he wasn't. Not really. For the next hour, he stood next to Elena while she worked the room, greeting people, discussing art and investments and things he had no context for. Everyone was polite. No one was rude. But he could feel the disconnect, the subtle shift when people realized he wasn't one of them. They were standing in front of a painting, something abstract that Daniel didn't understand, when a man in an expensive suit joined them. Elena, been too long. Marcus? Elena's voice cooled slightly. How have you been? Good. Great, actually. Marcus's eyes slid to Daniel. And who's this? Daniel Hayes, Elena said, and there was steel in her voice now. He's with me. The 3 words hung in the air, clear and unmistakable. Not a friend, not a colleague. With her. Marcus's expression flickered, surprise, maybe disapproval, but he recovered quickly. Pleasure to meet you. You too, Daniel lied. After Marcus left, Elena pulled Daniel outside to a small balcony. The night air was cool, the noise from inside muffled. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For them. For the questions, for the… She gestured back toward the gallery. For all of it. Elena, it's fine. It's not fine. She turned to face him fully. You shouldn't have to prove yourself to these people. You shouldn't have to feel less than because you work with your hands instead of moving money around. I don't feel less than. Don't lie to me. Daniel leaned against the railing, choosing his words carefully. Okay, yeah, it's uncomfortable. Being in there, knowing everyone's wondering what you're doing with someone like me. But I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm just… He stopped. I'm trying to figure out how to exist in your world without losing myself in the process. Elena moved closer, cupped his face in her hands. You don't have to exist in my world. I want to exist in yours. It doesn't work like that. Why not? Because your world is bigger. It takes up more space. That's not a bad thing. It's the reality. She kissed him then, soft and fierce and in full view of anyone who might look out the window. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. I don't care what they think, she said. I don't care if Marcus thinks you're not good enough or if Patricia is already gossiping about us. You're the first real thing in my life in years, and I'm not letting go of that. Elena, I love you. She said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I love you, and I want everyone in there to know it. The words hit Daniel like electricity, sparking through every nerve. He should be careful, should think this through, should remember all the ways love had failed him before. Instead, he kissed her back and said, I love you too. They stayed on the balcony for another 10 minutes, just holding each other while the party continued inside. And when they finally went back in, Daniel held his head higher. Let Elena introduce him to more people, answered their polite questions, existed in her world without apology. Because maybe she was right. Maybe love was the thing that made the impossible possible. They left early, drove back to Elena's house in comfortable silence. She asked if he wanted to come in, and he did. And they ended up in her studio with the door closed and the city lights spread out below them like scattered diamonds. Thank you, Elena said, lying beside him on the paint-stained drop cloth, their clothes scattered around them. For tonight. For being brave enough to walk into that room with me. Thank you for making me feel like I belonged there. You did belong there. You belong anywhere I am. Daniel pulled her closer, breathed in the smell of her hair and paint and possibility. What happens now? Now? Elena propped herself up on one elbow, traced patterns on his chest. Now we figure it out. Together. It sounded simple when she said it, like loving each other was enough to bridge the gap between their worlds, like wanting this could make it work. Daniel wanted to believe her, but lying there in the darkness, he couldn't shake the feeling that wanting something and having it were two very different things. The doubt didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, in the spaces between the good moments. Daniel woke up the morning after the gallery opening in Elena's bed, sunlight streaming through windows that probably cost more than his yearly income. She was still asleep, one hand curled under her cheek, looking more at peace than he'd ever seen her. He should have felt happy, should have been riding the high of what they'd said to each other last night. Instead, he felt the weight of it settling on his chest. He slipped out quietly, got dressed, left a note on her nightstand that he had to pick up Emma. It wasn't a lie. He did have to get his daughter, but it wasn't the whole truth either. The whole truth was that he needed space to think. Emma was waiting on her grandmother's porch when he pulled up, backpack already on. How was your date? She asked, climbing into the truck. It was good. Just good? Daniel pulled away from the curb. It was fine, Em. How was your night? Grandma let me stay up late and watch a movie. It was about a girl who becomes a spy. Emma buckled her seatbelt. Are you okay? You look weird. I'm fine. You're doing that thing where you say you're fine, but you're actually thinking about something. When had his daughter gotten so perceptive? They stopped for breakfast at a diner Emma liked, and she filled the silence with chatter about school and friends and a new book she wanted to read. Daniel made the appropriate noises, but his mind was elsewhere, thinking about the gallery, about Marcus's assessing look, about Patricia's polite dismissal, about standing in a room full of people who belonged there while he tried to convince himself he did too. His phone buzzed. Elena. Good morning. Woke up alone. Everything okay? He stared at the message while Emma talked about some drama with Jessica. Yeah, sorry. Had to get Emma. Talk later? Of course. Miss you already. Daniel set the phone down and focused on his daughter. The next few days passed in a blur of work and routine. Daniel took on 2 new jobs, a commercial rewiring and a residential panel upgrade. Kept himself busy enough that he didn't have time to think too much. Saw Elena twice, brief visits that felt good in the moment, but left him unsettled afterward. On Wednesday, she showed up at a job site again, this time without food or a specific reason. Just wanted to see you, she said when Daniel climbed down from the ladder. I'm covered in dust. I don't care. She kissed him anyway, and the guys working nearby pretended not to notice. Can you take a break? They sat in his truck, the radio playing quietly, and Elena told him about her day, a deal that had closed, a meeting that had run long, the normal rhythms of her life that Daniel couldn't quite connect to. I want you to meet someone, she said suddenly. Who? My business partner, Thomas. We're having dinner Friday night to discuss a new venture. I want you there. Daniel's stomach tightened. Elena, I know, more of my world. But he's important to me, and I want him to know you. Why? The question came out harder than he'd meant it to. Elena pulled back slightly. Because you're important to me. Because I want the people in my life to know each other. I don't know anything about venture capital. I won't have anything to contribute to the conversation. I'm not asking you to contribute. I'm asking you to be there. Daniel looked out the windshield at the half-finished building, at the work he understood. I don't think it's a good idea. Why not? Because I'll just be the guy sitting there while you and Thomas talk business. Because everyone will wonder what I'm doing there. Because... He stopped, trying to find the right words. Because I don't fit, Elena. And pretending I do doesn't change that. She was quiet for a long moment. Is that really what you think? That you don't fit? I think we're from different worlds, and sometimes love isn't enough to bridge that gap. The words landed heavy between them. Daniel, I should get back to work. He reached for the door handle. I'll call you later. He didn't call her later. He went home, picked up Emma from her after-school program, made dinner, helped with homework. Normal things that felt safe and manageable. When Elena texted that night, he kept his responses short, told himself he just needed time to think, but thinking only made it worse. Thursday morning, he was rewiring an outlet when his phone rang. Jennifer Martinez from the gallery. Daniel, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. I'm acquiring another property. Bigger than the gallery, it's going to be a multi-use arts space. Exhibition halls, studios, a small theater. The electrical work alone is probably a 6-month job. 6 months of steady work. 6 months of guaranteed income. The kind of opportunity that could change everything. What's the timeline? Daniel asked. I'd need you to start in 2 weeks, full-time, dedicated to this project. I know it's a big ask, but I want someone I trust, and the Johnsons and now the gallery staff won't stop talking about your work. Daniel thought about his current jobs, about the schedule he'd have to rearrange, about Emma and the custody arrangement, about Elena and time that was already stretched too thin. Can I think about it? Of course, but I need to know by Monday. This is a significant investment, and I need to lock in my contractors. After he hung up, Daniel sat in his truck and did the math. 6 months of full-time work meant good money. Meant he could finally build up savings, maybe even start thinking about that workshop he'd always wanted. But it also meant less flexibility, less time for everything else, less time for a relationship that already felt like it was slipping through his fingers. He was still sitting there when his phone rang again. Elena. Hey, he answered. Are you avoiding me? Her voice was careful, not accusatory. No, just busy. Daniel, talk to me. What's going on? Nothing. I'm tired, Elena. Of what? Of trying to be someone I'm not. Of walking into rooms where I don't belong and pretending it's fine. I've never asked you to be someone you're not. You don't have to ask. It just happens. Daniel rubbed his eyes. Every time I'm around your friends, around your world, I can feel myself trying to measure up. Trying to be worth the space I'm taking up next to you. That's not... She stopped, started over. You are worth it. You've always been worth it. To you, maybe, but what about everyone else? What about when they start asking questions about what you're doing with an electrician? What about when you realize you could be with someone who actually fits into your life instead of someone you have to make room for? Stop it. Her voice was sharp now. Stop deciding what I want or what I'm going to realize. I'm a grown woman, Daniel. I know what I'm choosing. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing a complication. Silence stretched between them. I'm coming over, Elena said finally. Elena, no, we're not doing this over the phone. I'm coming over, and we're going to talk about this face to face. She hung up before he could argue. Daniel drove home in a daze, his mind racing. This was it. The conversation he'd been avoiding, the reckoning he'd known was coming. He loved her, but love didn't erase reality, didn't make the gap between their worlds any smaller. Emma was at Rachel's for the night, so the house was empty when he got there. He paced the living room, trying to figure out what he was going to say. How to explain the fear that had been building in his chest for weeks. Elena's car pulled up 20 minutes later. She got out wearing the same clothes from this morning, like she'd dropped everything to come here. Daniel met her at the door. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood there awkwardly, all the easy comfort they'd found stripped away by doubt and distance. "Can I come in?" Elena asked. Daniel stepped aside. She walked into his living room and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. The worn furniture, the stack of bills on the coffee table, the kid's drawings stuck to the refrigerator, his whole life laid out in a space that would fit in her foyer. "This is what I meant," Daniel said quietly. "Look at this place. Look at where you live. We're not even in the same universe." Elena turned to face him. "Is that what you think matters? The size of the house?" "It's not just the house. It's everything. The jobs, the money, the people you know. I'm never going to be able to give you the kind of life you're used to. I don't want you to give me anything except yourself. That's not enough." "Why not?" "Because eventually you're going to wake up and realize you gave up your whole world for someone who can barely keep up with his bills. Someone who works 60-hour weeks just to stay afloat. Someone who makes me feel alive for the first time in years." Elena's voice cracked. "Someone who sees me as a person instead of a portfolio. Someone who doesn't want anything from me except my company." Daniel looked away. "You could have that with someone from your own world." "I don't want someone from my own world. I want you." "For how long?" The question came out rough. "How long before the novelty wears off? Before you realize that dating an electrician is a lot less romantic in reality than it seems right now?" Elena stepped closer. "Is that really what you think this is? A novelty? I think you're used to having everything you want. And right now, you want this. But wants change, Elena." "You're right." Her eyes flashed. "Wants to change. 2 months ago, I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to keep painting my lonely coastlines and pretending I was fine with a life that felt empty. Then you showed up and made me want something different. Made me want mornings that didn't feel pointless and nights that didn't echo. Made me want to be better, to do better, to actually live instead of just exist." "Elena, I'm not done." She moved even closer. "You think I don't know the difference between our lives? You think I haven't noticed that you work yourself to exhaustion while I throw money at problems to make them disappear?" "I see it, Daniel. I see all of it, and I don't care. Because what we have is real, the only real thing in my life." "But what happens when real isn't enough?" Daniel's voice broke. "What happens when you need more than I can give you?" "Like what? What do you think I need that you can't give me?" He gestured helplessly. "Stability, security. A partner who can actually keep up with your life instead of constantly feeling like he's drowning." "I have stability. I have more security than I know what to do with." Elena's hands clenched into fists. "What I don't have is someone who looks at me like I matter more than my bank account. What I don't have is someone who makes me laugh at stupid things and takes me to animal sanctuaries and kisses me like I'm the most important thing in his world." "You could find that with who?" She was almost shouting now. "With Marcus? With some tech CEO who wants a trophy wife? With another venture capitalist who sees relationships as transactions? With someone who belongs in your world?" "My world is empty." The words echoed in the small room. "My world is business meetings and boardrooms and people who smile at me while calculating what I'm worth to them. My world is a house that's too big for one person and paintings I'll never finish because I'm too busy maintaining an image that makes me miserable. So forgive me if I don't want to go back to that just because you've decided you're not good enough." Daniel stared at her, the raw pain in her voice cutting straight through him. "I'm scared," he admitted quietly. "I'm scared that I'm going to mess this up, that I'm going to lose you the way I lost Rachel, that I'm going to look back and realize I was the problem all along." Elena's expression softened. "Rachel left because you wanted different things, not because you weren't enough." "How do you know we don't want different things?" "Because I know what I want. And I'm looking at him right now." She closed the distance between them, cupped his face in her hands. "I love you, Daniel. I love your daughter, and your truck, and your terrible coffee, and the way you get paint in your hair when you help me in the studio. I love that you work with your hands and that you understand how things fit together. I love that you're real and honest and you don't try to be anything except what you are. Elena, I'm not done falling for you. I'm not going to wake up one day and realize I made a mistake. The only mistake would be letting you push me away because you're too scared to believe you're worth loving. Daniel felt something break open in his chest, all the fear and doubt spilling out. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. I don't know how to be with someone like you. Then we'll figure it out together. She pulled him closer. But you have to stop running. You have to stop deciding what I want and let me actually want it. He kissed her then, desperate and relieved and terrified all at once. Kissed her like she was the answer to questions he'd been asking his whole life. When they finally broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. Stay, Daniel said. Please. She did. They talked until late into the night, sitting on his worn couch while the house settled around them. Daniel told her about Jennifer's job offer, about the fear of taking on too much, about the constant calculation of time and money and responsibility. Elena listened without trying to fix it, without offering to solve his problems with her checkbook. What do you want to do? She asked finally. I want to take the job. It's good work, good money. But I'm worried about what it means for us, for the time we'll have together. Then we work around it. You take the job and I adjust my schedule. We figure it out. Just like that? Just like that. She traced patterns on his hand. Daniel, relationships aren't supposed to be convenient. They're supposed to be worth the inconvenience. He wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that they could make this work despite everything stacked against them. There's something else, Elena said quietly. What? I've been thinking about making some changes, scaling back on work, maybe taking on a partner so I'm not carrying everything myself. She looked at him. I want more time. Time to paint. Time to actually live. Time with you and Emma. You do that? I'm doing it for me, but having you in my life makes it easier to imagine. She smiled. Turns out you were right that day in the kitchen. Sometimes knowing what you want is just the first step. Actually choosing it is harder. They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, and Daniel woke up to early morning light and Elena's hand in his hair. Morning, she murmured. Morning. I should go, let you get ready for work. But neither of them moved. Daniel's phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Emma. Mom says she wants to talk to you about something. She sounded weird. His stomach dropped. I need to call Rachel. Elena sat up, giving him space. Daniel dialed, and Rachel answered on the second ring. Hey, Emma said you wanted to talk. Yeah. Rachel sounded nervous. David got a promotion. They're moving him to the London office. The London office. As in London, England. Congratulations to him, Daniel said carefully. We'd be moving in 3 months, and I know this affects the custody arrangement, so I wanted to talk to you before Emma found out. Daniel felt the world tilt. What are you suggesting? I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I want Emma with me, but I know she needs you too. Maybe we could do summers or holidays? Rachel's voice cracked. I don't want to take her away from you, Daniel, but I also can't leave her behind. Let me think about it, Daniel said, his mind racing. Can we talk more this weekend? Of course. And Daniel? I'm sorry. I know this is complicated. After he hung up, he sat staring at nothing while Elena watched him. What happened? She asked. Daniel told her, watched her face as she processed the implications. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I don't know. I can't. He stopped, overwhelmed. I can't lose her, not like that, not across an ocean. Elena moved closer, wrapped her arms around him. Then we'll figure something out. We? Elena, this isn't your problem. Anything that affects you affects us. That's how this works. Daniel pulled back to look at her. You realize how complicated this is about to get, right? Rachel might move Emma to London. I might have to fight for custody or figure out international visitation. My whole life might be about to turn upside down. I know. And you're still here. Where else would I be? Something shifted in Daniel's chest. A surrender, maybe. Or acceptance. He'd spent weeks trying to protect himself from getting hurt, from diving too deep into something that might not last. But Elena was right. The only real mistake would be pushing her away. I love you, he said. I love you too. They sat there in the morning light, and for the first time in weeks, Daniel felt the fear start to ease. Not disappear. It would probably never fully disappear, but become manageable. become something he could carry alongside everything else. His phone buzzed again. Jennifer, asking if he'd made a decision about the job. Daniel looked at Elena. Should I take it? Do you want to? Yeah, I do. Then take it. He typed out his response. I'm in. Let's make it happen. Elena kissed him, soft and proud. We're going to be okay. All of us. Daniel wanted to believe her, and for the first time he thought maybe he could. The week passed in a strange limbo. Daniel talked to Rachel twice more, both conversations circling around the same impossible question. What do you do when you can't be in two places at once? They agreed to tell Emma together on Sunday, to give her time to process before any final decisions were made. Elena was there every step of the way, not intruding, not trying to fix it, just present, solid. When Daniel spiraled into worst-case scenarios at 2 a.m, she talked him down. When he couldn't sleep, she stayed awake with him. Friday afternoon, he was finishing up a job when Elena called. What are you doing tonight? She asked. Nothing. Why? Come to the house. I have something to show you. She sounded different, excited maybe, or nervous. What is it? It's a surprise. Just come. 7 o'clock. Daniel arrived exactly on time, curious and a little worried. Robert wasn't at the door. Elena answered it herself, practically vibrating with energy. Close your eyes, she said. Elena, please, just trust me. He closed his eyes. She took his hand and led him through the house, down a hallway, through a door. When she finally told him to open them, he was standing in a space he'd never seen before. It was a workshop. Not fancy, not huge, but real. Workbenches, proper lighting, tool storage, space to actually build things. Everything set up like someone had studied what a good workshop needed and then made it happen. What is this? Daniel asked. It's yours, if you want it. Elena stood beside him, nervous now. I know you mentioned wanting a workshop once, and I know the house has way too much space I don't use, so I had Robert help me set this up. It's not perfect. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I thought maybe you could use it. Store tools, work on projects, whatever you want. Daniel walked around the space, taking it in. Someone had clearly done their homework. The bench height was right. The lighting was positioned correctly. Even the outlets were placed where they'd actually be useful. Elena, this is... He didn't have words. You didn't have to do this. I know. I wanted to. She came to stand beside him. I want you to have space here, real space. Not just room in my life, but actual physical space that's yours. This must have cost... Don't. She put a finger to his lips. This isn't about money. It's about showing you that I'm serious, that I want you here, in my life, in my house, in whatever way makes sense for you. Daniel looked around the workshop again, seeing it differently now. Not just tools and benches, but a future, a place where his work could exist alongside hers, where the gap between their worlds got a little bit smaller. There's something else, Elena said quietly. She led him outside to the driveway. Sitting there, gleaming under the porch lights, was a truck. Not new, but restored. A vintage model, probably from the 70s, painted a deep blue that caught the light. Daniel stopped walking. Elena, I know you need a new truck. Yours is dying, and you won't let me help you buy one. But this, she gestured to it. This was my grandfather's. He restored it before he died, and it's been sitting in storage for 15 years. I want you to have it. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. She moved closer. Daniel, you keep saying you have nothing to give me. You keep worrying that you're not enough. But you gave me back my life. You made me remember what it feels like to want things, to hope for things. So please, let me give you this. Let me show you that you matter. Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't process the enormity of what she'd done. The workshop, the truck. It was too much, way too much. But it was also exactly right. He pulled her into his arms and held on tight, his face buried in her hair. Thank you, he managed. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. He pulled back to look at her. Elena, I've spent the last month convinced I was going to mess this up, convinced you'd figure out I wasn't worth the trouble. But you keep showing me that you actually see me, the real me. And you're staying anyway. Of course I'm staying, she cupped his face. Where else would I go? They stood there in the driveway, the restored truck gleaming behind them, and Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, honest hope for a future that looked different than anything he'd planned, but better than anything he'd imagined. His phone buzzed. Emma. Dad, can Elena come to dinner on Sunday? I want her there when we talk to Mom. Daniel showed Elena the message. Will you? He asked. It might be hard. Rachel's going to tell her about London. Of course I'll be there. Elena didn't hesitate. Whatever you and Emma need. Sunday came too fast. Rachel arrived at Daniel's house at 5, looking tired and worried. Emma was in her room, supposedly doing homework, but probably just avoiding the inevitable. Elena showed up at 5:30, carrying a bag of food from Emma's favorite Thai place. Thought we could use comfort food, she said. Rachel's eyes widened slightly when she saw Elena, probably recognizing her from somewhere or just registering the obvious wealth. But she recovered quickly, shaking Elena's hand. You must be Elena. Emma talks about you constantly. Good things, I hope. Great things. Rachel's smile was genuine. Thank you for being here. I know this is probably weird. Family is never weird, Elena said simply. They called Emma down, and she appeared looking suspicious. Why are you all here together? Daniel and Rachel explained about London, about the promotion, about the difficult choices ahead. Emma listened quietly, her face going through a dozen emotions before settling on something close to resignation. So I have to choose? She asked finally, between you and Dad? No, Rachel said quickly. We would never make you choose like that. We're trying to figure out what works for everyone. What if nothing works? Emma's voice was small. What if there's no good answer? Then we find the least bad one, Daniel said. And we make it work anyway. Emma looked at Elena. What do you think I should do? The question caught everyone off guard. Elena glanced at Daniel, who nodded slightly. I think, Elena said carefully, that you should tell your parents what you want. Not what you think they want to hear, but what actually feels right to you. And then the adults will figure out how to make that happen. What if what I want is impossible? Most good things seem impossible at first. Emma considered this. I want both. I want to stay with Dad, and I want to be with Mom. I want to go to London, and I want to stay at my school. I want everything. Then we'll find a way to get you as close to everything as possible, Rachel said. They talked for another hour, throwing out ideas. Summers in London, school year with Daniel, video calls every day, holidays split. It was messy and complicated, and there was no perfect solution. But slowly, a plan started to form. After Rachel left, Emma went to bed without being asked. Elena helped Daniel clean up the dinner mess. That went better than I expected, Elena said. Yeah. Daniel put away the last plate. Still awful, but better. She's strong. She'll handle it. She shouldn't have to. No, but she will, because she has you. They moved to the couch, and Elena curled against his side. Can I ask you something? Daniel said. Always. The workshop, the truck, why now? Why all of this right when everything's falling apart? Elena was quiet for a moment. Because I needed you to know that I'm not going anywhere. That whatever happens with Emma, whatever happens with your work, whatever chaos comes next, I'm here. And I want you to have reasons to stay too. I don't need reasons. I need you. Then you have me. She tilted her head up to kiss him. All of me. For as long as you'll have me. Daniel held her close and let himself believe it. Let himself trust that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough to bridge any gap, solve any problem, weather any storm. His phone lit up with a text from Emma. Is Elena staying over? He showed Elena, who smiled. Is that okay? She asked. With Emma? She already asked if you were my girlfriend 3 weeks ago. I think she's fine with it. And you? Are you fine with it? Daniel thought about the question, about workshops and restored trucks, and a woman who loved him enough to fight for him, even when he was fighting against himself. Yeah, he said. I'm fine with it. They fell asleep on the couch again, the house quiet around them, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel's dreams weren't about things falling apart. They were about things coming together. The doubt came back 3 days later. Not the same crushing weight as before, but quieter, more insidious. Daniel was working late at the new arts center, running conduit through walls that seemed determined to fight him at every turn, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hayes Electric. Mr. Hayes, this is Catherine Brennan. I'm an attorney representing Ms. Vaughn in her business affairs. Daniel's stomach dropped. Okay. Ms. Vaughn has asked me to draw up some paperwork regarding the workshop space and vehicles she's provided to you. Standard documentation to protect both parties. I'd like to schedule a time for you to come in and review the documents. What kind of documents? Just formalities, gift declarations, liability waivers, that sort of thing. It's routine when assets of significant value change hands. Daniel ended the call feeling like he'd been punched. He sat in his truck in the parking lot and stared at nothing while his mind raced. Gift declarations, liability waivers, legal documentation for a truck, and a workshop he'd never asked for. He drove straight to Elena's house. Robert answered the door, surprise flickering across his usually composed face. Mr. Hayes, Ms. Vaughn isn't expecting... Where is she? In the studio, but Daniel was already moving. He found her exactly where Robert said, standing in front of a canvas, brush in hand. She turned when he came in, smile forming before she saw his expression. Daniel, what's wrong? Your lawyer called. The smile disappeared. Catherine, what did she... Elena set down her brush. I asked her to handle the paperwork for the truck and workshop. It's just documentation. Documentation for what? For the things you're giving me? Yes. To make it official. So there's no... She stopped, seeing something in his face. What's wrong? Daniel paced the length of the studio, trying to find the words. Do you know what it feels like? Getting a call from a lawyer about gifts you're giving me? Like I'm some kind of... He couldn't finish. Some kind of what? Like I'm something you're managing, like I'm another one of your assets that needs paperwork and documentation. Elena's expression shifted. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to turn what we have into a transaction. I'm trying to protect you. Her voice rose. I'm trying to make sure that if something happens, if we don't work out, if things fall apart, you're not left with nothing. I'm trying to be responsible. I don't want your responsibility. I want... Daniel stopped, the words catching in his throat. I want to be your equal, Elena, not someone you're taking care of. You are my equal. Am I? Because your lawyer is drawing up paperwork for a workshop and a truck that I didn't ask for. Because you keep solving my problems with money and resources I could never match. Because no matter what I do, I'm always going to be the guy who has less. Elena stepped closer. Is that really what you think? That I'm with you because I want to fix you? I think you're used to fixing things, and I think eventually you're going to realize I'm not something that can be fixed with the right investment. Stop it. Her voice was sharp now. Stop putting words in my mouth and deciding what I think. I gave you those things because I love you. Because I want you to have space to work, because I want you to have a truck that doesn't break down every other week. Not because I think you need fixing. But that's the problem, don't you see? Daniel's voice cracked. You can just give me those things. You can snap your fingers and make my problems disappear. What am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to feel like I'm bringing anything to this relationship when you can provide everything? You bring yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. It's not enough. The words hung between them, ugly and final. Elena went very still. What are you saying? Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw the paint in her hair, the exhaustion in her eyes, the woman who'd opened up her whole life to him. And he saw the gulf between them, wide as an ocean, no matter how hard they both tried to bridge it. I'm saying I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone who exists in a completely different world than me. I keep trying to convince myself it doesn't matter, but it does. Every day it matters. So what, you're just giving up? I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. Elena's eyes flashed. You're running away because it's easier than actually trusting that this could work. It's not about trust. Yes, it is. It's about you deciding that you're not worthy of being loved, and then proving yourself right by pushing me away. The accusation hit hard because it was true. Daniel had been waiting for this to fall apart since the beginning, waiting for the moment when Elena would realize her mistake. Maybe he was just speeding up the inevitable. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I want you to stay. I want you to stop looking for reasons to leave and start believing that we can figure this out together. But what if we can't? Elena crossed the distance between them, grabbed his hands. Then we'll fail together, but at least we'll have tried. Daniel looked down at their joined hands, hers soft, his calloused and scarred from years of work. Physical proof of the difference between them. I can't be your project, Elena. I can't be the guy you save. And I can't be the woman you're constantly measuring yourself against. Her voice broke. I'm just me, Daniel. I'm scared and lonely, and I don't have all the answers, but I know that I love you, and I know that what we have is real. Why isn't that enough? Because love doesn't pay bills. It doesn't close the gap between our lives. It doesn't... He pulled his hands away. It doesn't make me any less of a burden. A burden? Elena stared at him. Is that what you think you are? What else would you call it? You're setting up workshops and giving me trucks and having your lawyer draw up paperwork to protect us both from the inevitable. That's not a partnership. That's charity. Elena's face went white. Get out. What? Get out. Her voice was cold now, all the warmth stripped away. If that's what you really think, if you honestly believe that everything I've done comes from pity instead of love, then we have nothing left to say to each other. Daniel felt something crack in his chest. Elena, no, you've made yourself very clear. I'm the rich woman playing at relationships, and you're the poor electrician who can't possibly measure up. That's the story you've been telling yourself this whole time, isn't it? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because from where I'm standing, you just called our entire relationship charity. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it again. She was right. That's exactly what he'd implied. And he could see the hurt in her eyes, the way his words had landed like blows. I should go, he said finally. Yeah, you should. He left her standing in her studio, surrounded by her unfinished paintings, and drove home with his hands shaking on the wheel. What had he done? What the hell had he just done? His phone rang. Emma, Dad, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Why? Elena just texted me. She said she wouldn't be able to make it to my recital tomorrow. She sounded sad. Daniel had forgotten about the recital. Emma had been practicing for weeks, excited to show them both what she'd learned. I'm sure she has a work thing, Daniel said, the lie tasting like ash. Did you guys fight? You did. I can tell. Emma's voice was accusing. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Because Elena would never hurt you on purpose. But you get weird sometimes and push people away. When had his daughter become so perceptive? It's complicated, Emma. Everything's always complicated with you. She sighed, sounding far older than 8. You should apologize. I don't think it's that simple. It is, though. You said something dumb, she got hurt. Now you apologize. That's how it works. If only it were that easy. Daniel spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in his mind. Every word he'd said sounded worse in memory. Every accusation felt more unfair. Elena had been trying to show him love, and he'd thrown it back in her face. But underneath the regret was still the fear, the certainty that eventually she would wake up and see him clearly, see the gap between them, see that love couldn't bridge it. Morning came too early. Daniel went through the motions, shower, coffee, pretending to eat breakfast. His phone stayed silent. No texts from Elena. Nothing. He drove to the arts center and threw himself into work, ran wire until his shoulders screamed, tested circuits until his vision blurred. Anything to not think about gray eyes and the word burden hanging between them like a sentence. Around noon, his phone rang. Not Elena. Jennifer Martinez. Daniel, I hate to do this, but I need to talk to you about something. His stomach sank. Okay. I got a call this morning from one of my investors. They're concerned about timeline and want to bring in a larger electrical contractor to speed things up. I'm on schedule, ahead of schedule, actually. I know. I told them that. But they're not listening to me. Jennifer sounded apologetic. I'm fighting for you, but I wanted to give you a heads up that the project might be going in a different direction. After she hung up, Daniel sat in his truck and felt everything closing in. The job that was supposed to stabilize his life slipping away. The relationship that had made him believe in possibilities, destroyed by his own fear. Emma leaving for London in a few months. Everything he'd built, or thought he'd built, crumbling. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Thomas Chen, Elena's business partner. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the Greystone Cafe in an hour? Daniel almost ignored it, but curiosity won out. The cafe was in a nice part of town, the kind of place where coffee costs more than it should. Thomas was waiting at a corner table, a man in his 40s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. Daniel sat down warily. What's this about? Elena, Thomas signaled the waiter. And the fact that she's been crying for the last 12 hours. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. She told you about our fight? She didn't have to. I've known Elena for 10 years. I've seen her handle hostile takeovers, board revolts, and business failures without shedding a tear. But last night she called me at midnight, sobbing about how she'd ruined everything. Thomas leaned back. So, yes, I know you fought. What I want to know is if you're planning to fix it. I don't know if it can be fixed. Why not? Daniel gestured vaguely. Look at me. Look at her world. We don't fit. Says who? Says reality. Says every person who looked at us at that gallery opening and wondered what she was doing with an electrician. Thomas smiled, but there was no humor in it. You know what I see when I look at you? I see a man who showed up to a high society event in his best shirt and held his head high anyway. I see a man who makes Elena happier than I've ever seen her. I see someone who's so scared of not being enough that he's destroying the best thing that ever happened to him. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You think wealth is the measure of worth. You think because Elena has money and you don't, you're somehow less valuable. Thomas leaned forward. Let me tell you something about Elena. She's brilliant at reading markets and investments, but she's terrible at reading people, terrible at trusting them. She spent years building walls around herself because everyone she's ever been close to wanted something from her. Her father wanted her to carry on his legacy. Her ex-fiancé wanted a trophy wife. Her investors want returns. Everyone wants something. And I don't? According to her? No. You're the first person in her life who wanted her for her, who saw past the money and the mansion and actually cared about the woman underneath. Thomas's expression softened. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? Daniel looked down at his coffee. I called her charity. I told her the things she gave me felt like pity. Did you mean it? I don't know. Maybe. In the moment, it felt true. And now? Now, it felt like the stupidest thing he'd ever said. Like he'd taken something beautiful and smashed it because he was too scared to believe it could last. Now I think I'm an idiot, Daniel admitted. Good. That's a start. Thomas pulled out his phone, typed something. Elena's at the house. She's supposed to attend a board meeting in an hour, but she called in sick for the first time in her career. She's that devastated. What am I supposed to do? That depends. Do you love her? Yes. Do you want to be with her? More than anything. Then stop letting fear make your decisions. Thomas stood up. Go to her. Tell her everything you just told me. And then actually listen when she tells you that you're enough. Daniel sat there for a long moment after Thomas left. Then he paid for the coffee and drove to the mansion. Robert answered the door looking haggard. Mr. Hayes, I'm not sure now is... Please, I need to see her. Something in Daniel's voice must have convinced him. Robert stepped aside. Daniel found Elena in her bedroom, still in pajamas, her eyes red and swollen. She looked up when he entered, and the hope that flashed across her face before she could hide it nearly broke him. What are you doing here? Her voice was hoarse. I need to talk to you. I don't think I can do this right now, Daniel. Please, just hear me out. She didn't say yes, but she didn't tell him to leave either. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, keeping distance between them. I met with Thomas. He told me you've been crying. Thomas needs to learn to keep his mouth shut. He cares about you, and he's right about me being an idiot. Elena pulled her knees to her chest. I don't want your apology if it's just going to happen again. If you're going to panic and push me away every time things get hard. I know, and I don't have a good excuse except that I was scared. Daniel took a breath. I've spent my whole life feeling like I wasn't enough. Wasn't enough for my dad, who left when I was 10. Wasn't enough for Rachel, who needed more than I could give her. Wasn't enough for Emma, who has to split her time between parents because I couldn't keep my marriage together. Daniel, let me finish, please. He looked at her. Then you came along, and you were brilliant and successful, and everything I'm not. And I kept waiting for you to see it, to realize that I'm just a guy who works with his hands and can barely pay his bills some months. So I started looking for proof, started finding problems that didn't exist because it was easier than believing you actually wanted me. Elena's eyes were wet. I do want you. I've always wanted you. I know that now. Or I'm trying to know it. He moved closer. The workshop, the truck, I reacted badly because they felt like evidence that I couldn't provide for myself, that I needed you to swoop in and fix my life. But that's not what you were doing, was it? No, I was trying to give you something that mattered, something that showed you I'm invested in your future, our future. I'm sorry. Daniel's voice broke. I'm sorry I made you feel like your love was charity. I'm sorry I threw everything you offered back in your face. I'm sorry I'm so messed up that I tried to destroy the best thing in my life because I was too scared to believe it was real. Elena uncurled slightly. Are you done being scared? Probably not. I'll probably always have moments where I panic and think I'm not enough for you, but I'm done running. I'm done letting fear make my decisions. What changed? I realized something. Daniel reached for her hand, and she let him take it. Losing you hurts more than any fear I have, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been if I'd just been brave enough to stay. Elena squeezed his hand. I'm scared too, you know. Scared that I'll mess this up, that I'll do something wrong and drive you away, that I'll wake up one day and you'll be gone like everyone else. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. He pulled her into his arms. I love you, and I'm sorry, and I'll spend as long as it takes proving that I mean it. She clung to him, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Not the absence of fear, that would probably always be there, but acceptance, trust, the belief that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other. Eventually, Elena pulled back enough to look at him. I'm still mad at you, she said. You should be. And you're still an idiot for thinking I don't want you exactly as you are. Yeah, I am. But I love you anyway. I love you too. She kissed him, and it felt like coming home. Later, after she'd showered and changed, after they'd eaten lunch in the too big kitchen and talked through everything again more calmly, Elena's phone rang. She glanced at it, then at Daniel. It's Catherine, my lawyer. Answer it. Elena did, putting it on speaker. Catherine, hi. Elena, I'm so sorry to bother you on a sick day, but I wanted to let you know the documentation is ready. Should I send it to Mr. Hayes directly, or actually, can you shred it all? Elena said, looking at Daniel. Shred it? But we've already... I know, I'm changing my mind. The workshop and the truck are gifts. Personal gifts. They don't need documentation. A pause. Elena, I really think you should reconsider. From a legal standpoint, I understand your concern, but no documentation. It stays personal. After she hung up, Daniel pulled her close. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. You were right. Documentation made it feel like a transaction. And this isn't a transaction. It's us building a life together. Speaking of which, Daniel took a breath. I need to tell you something. Okay. Jennifer called this morning. The Arts Center job might be falling through. Her investors want to bring in a bigger contractor. Elena's face fell. Daniel, I'm sorry. It's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's not the end of the world either. He smiled slightly. You know why? Because for the first time in my life, I'm not defining myself by my work. I'm good at what I do, and I'll find other jobs. But what matters is this, us. I could make some calls. No? He stopped her gently. No calls. No fixing. I need to handle this myself. Okay. She nodded. But if you change your mind, I'll let you know. His phone buzzed. Jennifer. Speaking of which, I should probably take this. He stepped out onto the terrace while Elena waited inside. The afternoon sun was warm on his face. Jennifer, hey. Daniel, good news. I went to bat for you with the investors and they're backing down. The job is yours if you still want it. Relief flooded through him. I definitely still want it. Good. Because I meant what I said. You're the best electrician I've worked with. I'm not letting them take you off this project without a fight. After they hung up, Daniel went back inside to find Elena watching him. "Good news?" she asked. "Job's safe. Jennifer fought for me." Elena's smile was brilliant. "Because you're good at what you do." "Yeah." He pulled her close. "I am." That night, they went to Emma's recital together. Daniel picked up his daughter, and they drove to Elena's house so she could ride with them. Emma spent the whole drive explaining her routine, too excited to sit still. The recital itself was chaos. Dozens of kids, proud parents, terrible acoustics. But when Emma took the stage and nailed her piece, Daniel felt his chest swell with pride. And when he looked over at Elena, saw her filming on her phone with tears in her eyes, he knew he'd been given something precious. After the recital, they took Emma out for ice cream. She chattered about the performance, about Jessica's routine, about everything at once. "You guys made up, right?" she asked suddenly. Daniel and Elena exchanged a look. "Yeah, we did," Daniel said. "Good, because I was worried." Emma took a bite of her sundae. "Mom called today. She said London might not happen." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What?" "David's company changed their mind or something, so we're staying here." Emma didn't sound upset about it. "Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay." Daniel felt like he could breathe for the first time in weeks. More than okay. Later, after they dropped Emma at Rachel's, Daniel and Elena drove back to the mansion. They ended up in her studio, Elena showing him the painting she'd finally finished. The coastline, complete now, full of life instead of loneliness. "It's perfect," Daniel said. "It's honest." She set it aside. "Like us. We're pretty far from perfect." "Good. Perfect is boring." They ended up on the floor like they had before, surrounded by paint and possibility. Elena's head on Daniel's shoulder, his arm around her waist. "I have something to ask you," Elena said quietly. "Yeah?" "Move in with me, you and Emma." Daniel pulled back to look at her. "Elena, I know it's fast. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait. But I don't want to wait. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want Emma to have her own room here. I want us to build something real. What about the commute? Emma's school is across town. So we'll figure it out. I'll drive her, or we'll hire a driver, or..." Elena stopped. "I don't care about the logistics. I care about having you here." Daniel thought about his house, the small space that had never quite felt like home. Thought about Emma growing up in this mansion with space to run and Elena's library to explore. Thought about the workshop and the studio and building a life together. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Yeah, let's do it." Elena kissed him hard, and Daniel felt the last of his resistance crumble. This was terrifying and reckless, and probably too fast, but it was also right in a way nothing else had ever been. They spent the next week planning. Daniel gave notice on his house lease, started packing up his life box by box. Emma was thrilled about the move, already planning how to decorate her new room. Rachel was surprisingly supportive when Daniel told her. "She makes you happy," Rachel said. "I can hear it in your voice. And Emma adores her. That's all I need to know." The move itself was chaotic. Daniel's furniture looked ridiculous in the mansion's enormous rooms. But Elena insisted on keeping it all, mixing his worn couch with her expensive art until the space felt like both of them. Emma adapted immediately, claiming a bedroom twice the size of her old one and filling it with books from Elena's library. The first night in the new house, she appeared in their doorway at midnight. "This place is really big," she said, looking small and young. "Too big?" Daniel asked. "Maybe a little. Can I sleep in here tonight?" Elena pulled back the covers without hesitation. "Come on." Emma climbed between them, and they fell asleep like that. 3 people who'd found each other against all odds, building something that looked like family. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Daniel and Elena still fought sometimes, still had moments where their different worlds collided. But they learned to talk through it, learned to trust that loving each other meant working through the hard stuff together. The Arts Center job finished on time, and Jennifer offered Daniel another project. Then another. Word spread about his work, and suddenly he had more jobs than he could handle alone. "You should hire people," Elena said one night over dinner. "Build an actual company." "I don't know the first thing about running a company." "Lucky for you, I do." So they built it together. Hayes Electric grew from a one-man operation to a team of 5. Daniel did the work he loved while Elena handled the business side. It wasn't charity, it was partnership. 6 months after moving in, Daniel woke up early and found Elena already awake beside him. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Just thinking." "About what?" She turned to face him. "About how different my life is now, how full it feels." "In a good way?" "In the best way." She traced his jaw with her finger. "I used to think success meant having more money, more investments, more proof that I'd made something of myself. But I was just filling space, trying to make the emptiness matter. And now? Now I know the difference between existing and living, between having everything and having what matters." Daniel pulled her closer. "Which is?" "You, Emma, this." She gestured to the room, the house, the life they'd built. "Waking up and actually being excited about the day instead of just getting through it. Painting because I want to, not because I'm trying to escape. Having people who love me for me, not for what I can give them." "I love you," Daniel said simply. "I know, and I finally believe it." They lay there in the early morning light, and Daniel thought about the man he'd been 8 months ago, tired and alone, and convinced that love was something that happened to other people. He'd been so sure that he had nothing to offer someone like Elena, but he'd been wrong. What he'd offered was himself, his honesty, his work ethic, his love for his daughter. The way he saw Elena as a person instead of a portfolio. The space he created for her to be vulnerable, to be uncertain, to be human. And she'd offered the same. Not money or mansions, but trust. The kind of trust that came from showing someone your unfinished paintings and your empty spaces and believing they wouldn't run. That afternoon, Elena had a surprise. "Close your eyes," she said, leading him out to the driveway. "Again with the surprises?" "This one's different, trust me." When he opened his eyes, there was a sign propped against the restored truck. Hand-painted, clearly Elena's work. It read, "Hayes and Vaughn Workshop, where we build things together." "What's this?" Daniel asked. "Your workshop needed a name. Our workshop." She smiled nervously. "I thought maybe we could use it for more than just electrical work. I could paint, you could build, Emma could create. A space that's ours." Daniel looked at the sign, at the woman who'd painted it, at the life they were creating together. "It's perfect," he said. That night they had dinner with Emma and Rachel, who'd come to pick up some of Emma's things. It was strange and wonderful, all of them sitting around Elena's huge dining table like some kind of modern blended family. "So London's definitely off?" Elena asked Rachel. "Completely off. David's staying local." Rachel glanced at Daniel. "Which works out better for everyone, I think." "It does," Daniel agreed. After Rachel left, Emma helped clean up while Elena made hot chocolate. "Dad?" Emma said, drying a plate. "Yeah? Are you happy now? Like, actually happy?" Daniel thought about the question. About the workshop and the work, and the woman in the kitchen making cocoa. About his daughter, healthy and safe and loved. About waking up each day excited instead of exhausted. "Yeah, Em, I'm actually happy." "Good. You deserve it." The simple statement, delivered with the certainty of a child, hit him harder than any grand declaration. Later, after Emma had gone to bed, Daniel and Elena sat on the terrace overlooking the city. The lights spread out below them like scattered stars. "Can I tell you something?" Elena said. "Always. That first night when you came to fix the lights, I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were going to change everything. I didn't know how, didn't know what it would look like. But I knew my life was about to be different." She leaned against him. "I was terrified." "Of me? Of wanting something I couldn't control. Of letting someone in who might actually see me. All of me, not just the parts I show the world." "And now?" "Now I'm still terrified sometimes, but I'm also grateful. For you, for this, for the chance to build something real." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker. And Daniel realized something that had taken him months to understand. Love wasn't about being perfect for each other. It wasn't about erasing the differences or pretending the gaps didn't exist. It was about showing up anyway. About choosing each other every day, in all the small ways that mattered, about building a life together that honored both of them, that made space for doubt and fear and hope and joy. It was about standing in a broken mansion on a storm-heavy night and deciding to fix what was broken instead of walking away. Weeks turned into months. The holidays came and went, filled with traditions they created together. Emma's 9th birthday arrived with a party at the wildlife sanctuary, Maria helping them set up tables near the owl enclosure. Rachel and David came, and it was only slightly awkward. One Sunday in early spring, Daniel woke up to find Elena already gone from bed. He found her in the studio, standing in front of a blank canvas. "Starting something new?" he asked. "Maybe." She set down her brush. "I've been thinking about doing a series, different coastlines, different moments, a whole collection instead of just one painting." "Sounds ambitious." "I'm ready to be ambitious again, but about the right things this time." Daniel understood. For both of them, ambition had shifted. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about building something that mattered. His phone rang. "Thomas." "Daniel, got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "I'm starting a new venture fund, focusing on small businesses and local contractors. I want Hayes Electric to be one of the first companies I invest in." Daniel's breath caught. "Thomas, before you say no, hear me out. This isn't about Elena. This is about the fact that you're doing solid work. You're building a good company, and I think there's real potential for growth. I want to help make that happen." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. Talk to Elena. Talk to your team. If you're interested, we can discuss terms." After hanging up, Daniel told Elena about the offer. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think it's a good opportunity. Thomas doesn't make bad investments." "You're not influencing this decision?" "No." She met his eyes. "But even if I was, would it matter? We're building a life together, Daniel. That means our successes are shared. Your wins are my wins. That's not charity. That's partnership." He pulled her close. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from an electrician who taught me that fixing things is just the beginning. The real work is building something that lasts." They decided to accept Thomas's investment. Hayes Electric expanded, taking on bigger projects, hiring more people. Daniel found himself managing instead of just working, and he was surprised to discover he was good at it. Emma thrived. Her room filled with books and art projects, and the confident chaos of a kid who felt safe and loved. She still saw Rachel regularly, still navigated the complexities of divorced parents, but she did it with grace that amazed Daniel. One night, almost a year after they'd moved in together, Elena came home late from a meeting. Daniel was in the workshop, repairing an old radio he'd found at an estate sale. "Hey," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Working late?" "Just tinkering. Emma's asleep already. She had a long day." Elena came to sit beside him, watching his hands work. "I have something to ask you." "Okay." "Marry me." Daniel's hand stilled on the radio. "What?" "Marry me." She said it calmly, like she was suggesting dinner plans. "I know it's unconventional. I know I'm supposed to wait for you to ask, but I don't want to wait. I want to marry you, Daniel Hayes. I want to make this official. I want Emma to be ours, not just yours. I want to build a life where we're not just living together, but actually family." Daniel set down his tools. "Elena, if you need time to think about it." "Yes. Yes, you need time," or "Yes, I'll marry you." He pulled her into his arms. Yes to all of it. Yes to being family. Yes to making this official. Just yes. She kissed him hard, laughing and crying at the same time. They told Emma the next morning over breakfast. She looked between them, processed the news, then grinned. "Does this mean Elena's going to be my stepmom?" "If that's okay with you," Elena said carefully. Emma considered this seriously. "Can I still call you Elena?" "Of course. And you're not going to try to replace my real mom?" "Never. Your mom is your mom. I'm just—" "Bonus family," Emma finished. "Like in my book. The girl gets a bonus family at the end." "Exactly like that." "Okay, then yes. Let's do it." They planned a small wedding, not the society event Elena could have had, but an intimate gathering at the sanctuary surrounded by the people who actually mattered. Maria officiated. Emma stood between them as they exchanged vows. "I promise to show up," Daniel said, his voice steady. Even when it's hard, even when I'm scared, I promise to trust that you love me, and to love you back with everything I have. I promise to see you, Elena said. Not what I wish you were, not what I can make you, but who you actually are. I promise to build a life with you, not for you. And I promise to keep painting coastlines because you taught me that unfinished is okay as long as we're working on it together. They kissed while Emma cheered and the animals made their usual chaos in the background. It was messy and imperfect and exactly right. The reception was held at the house, the two-big mansion that had finally become a home. Daniel danced with Emma, then with Elena, then watched his daughter dance with Rachel and David while Elena talked with Thomas and Maria. Later, when the guests had left and Emma had finally fallen asleep on the couch from exhaustion, Daniel and Elena stood on the terrace again. "We did it," Elena said. "We did." No regrets? Daniel thought about the journey that had brought them here. The storm, the broken electrical system, the moment their paths had crossed. The fights and the doubts and the fears, the choosing each other anyway. "No regrets," he said. "Not even one." She leaned into him, and they watched the city lights together. Two people from different worlds who'd built a bridge between them, not with money or status or perfection, but with honesty and trust and the willingness to keep showing up. Daniel had spent most of his life believing he wasn't enough, that love was something that happened to other people, that he was destined to always be on the outside looking in. But standing there with Elena in his arms, with Emma asleep inside their home, with the life they'd built together spread out before them, he finally understood. He'd always been enough. He just needed to find someone who saw it. And she'd found him too, in the chaos of a storm-heavy night, in the click of a fixed breaker, in the quiet moment when everything fell into place. Sometimes the most important connections happen in the least expected moments. Sometimes fixing what's broken is just the beginning. And sometimes the distance between two worlds isn't as far as it seems when two people are brave enough to meet in the middle. Daniel Hayes had learned all of that, and in learning it, he discovered something even more important, that love wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about figuring it out together, one imperfect day at a time, building something real from the broken pieces and trusting that it would hold. And it did.